Long live your turtle here, and I think I just completed my favorite Facebook Marketplace purchase of all time. You know, when you do these Craigslist or Facebook Marketplaces, you're meeting with people you've never known, and it can be a kind of an awkward transaction sometimes. But the stuff I just got from this guy, it was an excellent deal, and it was also an excellent experience because this guy was really knowledgeable of what he was giving me. So the stuff I got is totally gonna benefit the turtles in the long run. I gotta set it up first and get it all going, but it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I finally had the chance. Let's set this all up. I'm gonna show you exactly what I have going on here and what I'm planning to do with it in the future for my turtles. And stay tuned at the end of the video because I'm gonna go over some future projects that I'm thinking about doing over my winter break. I got a couple days off, so plenty of time to hit the grindstone and DIY it up. Let's get to it. And voila, 10 minutes later, we have this entire thing set up. This is a 10-gallon aquarium, and it's as close as you can get to driving a tank off the lot. Because I got this off Facebook, we were able to arrange exactly how we wanted to do this. I put the fish with some of the tank water in a bucket, and I drained the water almost to the bottom, but left enough water so that the plants and everything still retained their general positions, and left the sponge filters in there and everything, the tubing, and I just had to remove the light and put the light back on for this actual install. But the previous owner took excellent care of this tank and making sure that everything was working really well for it. So before I show you exactly what is going on in this tank, I want you to, in your head, keep track of what you think the overall cost of a setup like this would be, because I think in the end it'll surprise you what I actually had to pay for this. So let's take a look, shall we? All right, so let's talk about the coolest thing in the tank, which is always the fish. So we have 6 gold minnows in this tank. Now, this is a turtle related video. Why? Because this tank is going to become a breeding tank for a fish that I want to become basically a feeder fish for the turtles. I know it sounds cruel, but this is a beautiful tank for babies to grow up in, and feeding live fish to turtles is perfectly normal in the hobby and obviously in real life, because that's what turtles do. They eat fish. So these fish, I'm debating whether I want to put them in my 75-gallon. I think they'll actually do well living with Harold, because Harold's not too aggressive with fish, and I think they might actually thrive there. Or I'm going to bring them to the 10-gallon that I have at my workplace, which is also a planted tank like this, where they would also thrive. Now you're probably asking, what fish is Long Live Your Turtle going to put in this tank that he's going to breed and use as feeder fish for the turtles? Now I'm going to leave that question up to viewers like you. What fish do you think would be excellent to breed as feeder fish for my pet turtles? Now, a couple criteria that I'm looking for, and then I have a couple ideas in mind, but it needs to be a fish that is essentially super easy to breed, in that you basically just need a male and a female and just decent water parameters, and breeding will happen. That is what I'm looking for. Second, there's a great chance that these feeder fish will actually survive in my turtle tank. So I want them to be a cool feeder fish, that they're not just kind of rosy red minnows, or obviously I'm not going to do a goldfish, but something that looks cool, maybe like a fancy guppy or a platy. Let me know. There's all sorts of strains of those same fish. So leave in the comments what you think would be an excellent breeding fish as a feeder fish for my turtles. Now, let's get to what I got going on in this tank that's going to become a great breeding tank. And remember, keep a log of what you think this is going to cost in the end, and then I will reveal what I got this for. Now, let's start talking about what we got in this tank. So what you're looking at right now is a 10-gallon standard aquarium, and on top it's got this clear glass lid, which I love. It's not one of those big boxy tops. It just makes it look like honestly a bigger tank that's a little cleaner, and I just love glass lids like that. And up here we actually have a Beamswork full spectrum light. Now this comes with a little controller, if I can find it. And this controller allows you, right now it's just on, but it allows you to set dimming times and just a general timer for night and day, which this is an excellent light and probably way overkill for just a low light planted tank. So that light is really cool. It has these awesome little legs that again, just give it a nice elevation. It just makes it look like a really slick tank, and I love it. So to keep talking about the boring stuff, I have an Eheim heater in the back that keeps our water temperature where it needs to be. And of course, this is a little bit important when it comes to breeding, because fish that are breeding need to be really comfortable. So keeping that water temperature is really important. And then next to the heater, you'll see lots of bubbles coming out, and that is an air hose attached to a sponge filter. Now that's one, and on the other side of the tank, we got two. These are 10-gallon sponge filters, and they're being run by a 40-gallon air pump. So you're getting plenty of sponge filter filtration in this tank. You don't need any HOB hang on the back filters, obviously not a canister filter for this tank. And sponge filters are just super easy, so easy to clean, so easy to maintain, and I highly recommend them for small fish tanks like this. And if you're thinking about breeding or want shrimp in this tank, they don't have big intakes like a HOB filter that you would actually have to put a sponge on anyway, because it would suck up any sort of small fry or shrimp. So what's pumping all that air? We got a 40-gallon Aqueon air pump. This thing is super quiet. It's actually quieter than my Tetra pump, so I really like this thing so far. And in the back, we have some pre-assembled valves, so I can change the rate of air going through our air tubing, and thus our sponge filters. And all of those accessories are what I would call the machinery that keeps this tank clean and comfortable for any living inhabitants. Now, we already talked about the gold minnows that are beautiful, and they're already so comfortable with me. Again, I bought this from someone in Craigslist. These fish have been in this tank for a little while and they're comfortable with it. So I'll take a quick look around here, but we also have some ram's horn snails. Now these guys are getting pretty big, and these guys are prolific, and they will populate this tank like no other, which is excellent. Why? Because that is another thing I'll essentially be breeding without trying. And there's another one in the corner here. And I can feed these to the turtles. I can feed these to my convex cichlids, my pleco. They will love eating any sort of little snail that I'll put in the tank. So when the snails get a little bit overpopulated in this tank, they'll have new tanks to go to. A little bit more threatening, but there's a place for them to go. On the bottom here, we have a black crushed rock sand, and that's just a great general substrate. I'm gonna have to put root tabs and whatnot in here, just because there isn't a ton of nutrients in that type of sand. But this tank has a lot of plants in it, as you can see. And let's talk about those real quick. We got tons of Bacoba stems. I'm counting like 15 of those Bacoba stem plants. And then we got 2 marble queen sword plants. This one is magnificent. It's got a lot going on there. Tons of leaves sticking out, looking really healthy. In the corner, we have another little sword plant. This one I got covered with a little sand. I'll have to brush that up a bit. But this one's doing well too. It'll make it. And then we got this awesome Anubias Nana plant here. This is a strong plant, and it kind of just digs its roots in, as you can see, and looks awesome. So like I said, this was an off-the-lot tank. What I mean by that is I went to a person's house and I literally just picked up this tank and brought it here and did a very minor setup to get it going. Yes, I love to set up my own tanks, and yes, I love little DIY projects. I'm sure I'll think about some like a background for this tank. But when I was thinking about it, I have a lot of other projects that I want to get into, and also I was looking at the price tag of setting up my own tank from scratch. One being time. I would need to cycle a tank, or I would need to boost a cycle, maybe using some turtle water, and that takes time. I would need to get every single component individually here, and that can carry a pretty high price tag. So like I asked you before, what do you think the price of this setup is if I were to buy everything from scratch and get it to look just like this? Well, I want to go over it real quickly with you. We got a 10-gallon tank, 20 bucks. We got our glass lid, 20 bucks. We got our Beamswork light with an adjustable dimmer timer, and that's going to be around 50, 60 bucks. You got your sponge filters. We'll say those are $5 a piece. That's another 10 bucks. You got your Eheim water heater in the back corner there. That's gonna run you at about 15 bucks. We got that 40-gallon Aqueon air pump, and that's gonna run you about 25 bucks. And we have the tubing and the valves to let that run how we want it. That's gonna be at least another 5 bucks, and that's being conservative. You got your black sand. We're gonna say that's conservatively 10 bucks. And now let's get to the Inhabitants. Each of these gold minnows, we're gonna say are 4 bucks a piece. So looking at the plants, we got like 15 Bacoba stems. We have those 2 sword plants. And then we got that really cool Anubias Nana. If I were to go Petco, this would be expensive and probably like $50 for all this, which is crazy. But I'm gonna bring it down to like, let's say $30 for all these plants. So adding all that up, I'm gonna give or take about $175 to $200 for this setup. This setup's beautiful and it deserves that price tag. This is a lot of really good equipment and it's gonna do really well without me essentially touching it. But on top of all that, this guy had a little bucket of things he was moving and he was being so generous. It was basically my early Christmas. I was just so thankful. But he gave me these little treat tablets, which are a lot of fun. You get to stick these on the glass and you can watch the fish eat them. He gave me Prime water conditioner, really high quality primer for your water. He gave me just some mini pellets for some fish. He gave me frozen food, so he gave me 3 packs of like half full bloodworms, which the turtles are gonna love, fish are gonna love, every animal I have that's in the water is gonna love. So that was, and those can be pretty pricey. That was really nice of him. And then he even just had, I think he had a Pleco before. Obviously there's no Pleco in here, but some algae wafers that I have a Pleco now, and it's gonna be perfect for the Pleco I have in my 75-gallon aquarium. So, and that's it, that's all he gave me, about $175, $200 worth of equipment. And I could set it up immediately and just have it ready to go. This guy was so awesome, so generous, and so nice. Guess what he charged me for this tank and everything I just talked about? $60. I tried to give him more money. He wouldn't take it. This guy gave this to me for $60. And this brings me to a really important point when it comes to being able to afford setups like this. Obviously $175 to $200, that's really expensive, especially if you're younger and you don't even have a job. That's gonna be extra hard. You're gonna have to put in a lot of chores to kind of save up money like that. Just for a 10-gallon aquarium that you're looking at here, which is a pretty small setup, it still costs a lot of money just to have a beautiful looking tank like this with living plants. And that's where I point you to always check your local ads like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, because you'll find people that they might be moving out, or they might just want to upgrade and they want to get rid of it pretty quick, or they're just really generous and they want someone else to enjoy their awesome tank because they no longer want it. You can get awesome deals for all this stuff. And I use Facebook Marketplace for this. I just hopped on, kind of tracked the tanks that were being sold for a couple of days. This one came up, immediately messaged the seller, and here we are with a tank that I was thinking that I needed to buy every single little thing for, and I was dreading the price tag. Now this was an off the lot, ready to go tank. You can even get just tanks or just filters or just anything off those marketplaces like Craigslist or Facebook. Of course, always be careful when you're meeting strangers on these platforms, but also be careful with what you're buying. Make sure their description matches exactly what you are seeing when you go to check this out. Don't be afraid to walk away. This guy aced exactly what he described, and it's perfect for me. But I've had times where tanks have cracks in them, or other situations where things might not work, or they're so old, or they had missing pieces. Always check that, because you don't want to be disappointed or so stressed when you're just meeting someone, because the weird human condition where you want to please people, or you're just too nervous to be like, no, I'm leaving, bye. Obviously you don't need to be that rude, but walk away if you don't like it. You're spending your money, and they put it on to sell. They know that you could walk away at any time. It happens. So I got really lucky. Got an awesome setup here from an awesome seller. Again, to my subscribers, to my viewers, please give me suggestions on awesome fish that I can really, really, really easily breed. And by that I mean doing nothing except for having 2 different gender fish. And those fish will end up being my feeder fish for my turtles, or permanent inhabitants if they end up not being eaten and figure out the turtles are trying to munch on them. Let me keep my distance, which goldfish have figured it out, convict cichlids figured it out, plecos figured it out, but we'll see what happens. And here is my 100-gallon turtle tub pond. It has 3 goldfish and 2 turtles. It's got Moses and Crackers in there, living all harmoniously. and it's in need of an update because I always want to keep working on this stuff and coming up with DIY projects. Now, if this all sounds like cool stuff to you, don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button so that when I make these videos, they are there for you to watch and you get to reap the rewards of me trying out different DIY projects. Sometimes they don't work, sometimes they do. The ones that do work will make it onto the videos and hopefully give you great ideas. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Long live your turtle!